Do you ever feel like your brain is foggy? It may be the result of brain rot. That's a scary proposition. Gene Lipov has studied the brain and says you might be spending too much time on your cell phone. Gene Lipov, welcome to The Truth.
Thanks for having me.
Now, brain rot sounds like a pretty esoteric topic to me. How did you get in? How did you even uncover the concept, Frank?
Well, I've been doing PTSD work for years. So I've been interested in how the brain works for 20 years. But what happened was my son, who is 23 now, was, doing the usual doom scrolling and all that stuff, like everybody his age. One day, about 6 months ago, he said, I don't want to do it anymore. I think it's bad for me. I've been telling him to knock it off, but didn't do it. And he said, I really want to switch to doing like Legos and doing Dungeons and Dragons, disengage from digital life, basically.
Sounds like a pretty mature young man.
Yeah, but it turns out a lot of Gen Zs are trying to do it. So 16%, 1/6 of Gen Zs are switching to flip phones, if you can believe that. So they're waking up that this is a bad thing. So I've never heard of brain rot. I mean, that's kind of not a very medical term, as you can imagine. However, it's becoming a big deal, and Gen Zs are kind of leading the charge. They're the most affected by it currently. Alpha generation is another story, which is going to be even worse. But brain rot is a term that a lot of people are using. So basically what that means is something bad happens to your brain after you use your cell phone too much. That's a translation.
Does you really think that it alters the physical characteristics of the brain or the chemistry of the brain or both?
Both. Actually, I wrote a Substack. If you're interested in details of that, I can get you that. But basically, what's interesting is the way to measure how big your brain is to get an MRI, right? You've heard of MRIs. You can look inside the skull.
Of course.
So it turns out the heavier the use of cell phones, the more brain loss you have, meaning the brain shrinks. We're talking about now 20, 30-year-olds. We're not talking about 80-year-olds. So yes, it's definitely known to happen. The other thing it does is, if you think about it, if you do a lot of scrolling, what happens is you have a problem, especially if you do it at night, right? You've heard the melatonin probably. Melatonin makes you go to sleep, which is a natural substance produced in pineal gland. But what happens is if you have a light at night, it's a process of melatonin. Also, as you're scrolling, even if you put the phone away, you're still thinking about it, so you can't sleep. If you can't sleep, it causes inflammation. And you can actually measure blood work on that. So inflammation actually can chew up your brain, can actually shrink the brain. If you do it long enough, you start to see people already, you have brain fog, you can't think straight, you have attention span of a newt, can't keep track of it. One, you're used to all those changing all the time from phone, but actually you have physical brain change. That's the whole thing. That's why I wrote this book. It's going to be out in about a month. It's called Digital Brain Rot. Doom scrolling, get your brain back.
Well, now as I understand it, you are a medical doctor. And anesthesiology is your specialty?
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. Yeah, I definitely went to medical school. So yes, I am definitely a medical doctor. So I went from anesthesia to pain medicine. In pain medicine, I came up, there's an old procedure called stellate ganglion block. That's an injection in the neck. That's been done for a century now. I found out it takes away PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, in about 10 minutes. That's why I got into brain science and stress and all of that. And that's why when I came across this thing with my son, I was able to kind of integrate it and understand it pretty deep level.
Okay, now, and what did you discover that would help PTSD?
So there is a nexus in the neck called stellate ganglion between fight and flight nerves in the chest and the brain. So if you numb it up, it's like rebooting the brain. You know how the computer stops working, right? So when we do that, you can reboot the computer and it starts to work better. So when you put on local anesthetic into the neck, numb up that nexus, it resets the brain to pre-trauma state. So I gave testimony in front of Congress about it in 2010. I've written a bunch of articles. Like the guys in Fort Bragg and other military facilities use that quite often now to treat PTSD.
The brain continues to be the least understood part of the human body, does it not?
Yeah, that's true, because it's
Is
so
it not?
complicated. That's a true statement.
I served on the board of an organization called Skyline Trail in Atlanta. It is perhaps the premier institution in the United States for the treatment of mood disorders, including depression, bipolar, schizophrenia.
Yep.
And I've sat through more lectures than I can recall about the brain. And our campus is located 3 miles from the Emory campus. And so we've had tremendous collaboration and work with the Emory psychology Department of Psychiatry and the medical staff. I recall about 10 years ago sitting through a lecture by this, I don't know what you call it when someone's a brain doctor. They
Neuroscientist and neurosurgeon, depends.
Neuroscientists, and maybe a neurosurgeon, because this lady was experimenting with, as I recall, it was deep brain stimulation.
Yep.
Where you actually go into the brain and you administer very, very low electric shock.
You put an implant in, it's a
And,
stimulator, right?
Yes, and the results, according to her then, and I haven't followed it since then because I've rolled off the board after 30 years, but that it does relieve a lot of the symptoms of depression and other brain disorders.
Yeah, and I mean, that is a true statement. The problem with that's an invasive procedure. You have to open up the skull and stick needles in the middle of the brain.
Yes.
You know, you could see how a lot of things will go wrong.
No, thank you. I'll live with the disease, I think.
Well, it depends. I mean, if people are suicidal and that all it'll work
Yes.
for them, yes.
I shouldn't make light
But
of it.
before that, I think there's a number of things you should do before, like VNS, vagal nerve stimulator, for example. The cool thing about stuff I do, there's no implant, right? It's a 5-minute procedure that can give you, it can help PTSD for sure. It can also help schizophrenia, which is kind of interesting. It works on depression, not as good as could be. So the first publication about using stellate for depression was 1947 Cleveland Clinic. So it's been used for many years, but people forgot about it. I was able to resurrect it, so to speak.
So PTSD is a real thing, right? I mean, it's not just a psychological disorder, but it's actually, does it change the brain? Does it reshape the brain or change the chemistry in the brain or some of both?
Sure does. So, people talk about PTSD and they call it the invisible wound, right? So to me, if it's invisible, you have the wrong scanner. If you have the right scanner, like a PET scan, MEG scan, MRI, fMR, you can actually see it. You could see the amygdala overactivation. Part of the brain that controls PTSD is called the amygdala. You can definitely see it, and it's real biological condition. So I have been trying to change the name PTSD to PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury. So if you look at my pin, it says PTSI. It means, so disorder is what's wrong with you. Injury is what happened to you. So if somebody has a broken leg, they don't have a broken leg disorder. They have a broken leg. You could be able to diagnose it and treat it biologically, right? So sympathetic block, that's what I do. That resets the brain to pre-trauma state. It's biologic. Yes, it's real. And unfortunately, it caused a lot of stigma. PTSD to this day, people cause it causes stigma. Stigma kills. When people feel stigmatized, they don't get care, and they don't want to talk about it, then bad things happen. So no question, PTSD is real. It's been known since 1984, but we're still arguing about it with American Psychiatric Association.
Something you said just sort of triggered a thought. We're not very kind as a people to victims, are we? I mean, someone with PTSD really oftentimes should be celebrated as a hero, because a lot of service men and women come home with PTSD, and we don't seem to, our response doesn't seem to be very humane to me. It seems like we punish people who we really should be lending a shoulder and a helping hand to. Have I got that wrong?
No, 100% right. So basically, I think what you're describing is mental disease is shunned in our society. I think that's
Yes.
true, because people think you can
Absolutely.
snap out of it. So I did a TEDx talk, and that's one of the things I talked about this year, that you cannot really snap out of it if you have extra nerves, fight and flight nerves in your brain. That's what happens in PTSD. So you cannot really snap out of it. So it's real, it happens. Unfortunately, in our society, it's kind of puritanistic society, and we think like, oh, you should always be happy and you have no reason to do this. But it's like saying, it's like you don't have a broken leg. The patient knows they have a broken leg. They know they're miserable. And if you look at the suicide rate, they're huge, right? I mean, I think one person in the United States kills themselves every 30 minutes currently.
That sounds like an epidemic to me.
It is, but the question is, why does that happen, right? To me,
Why
everything is
does
why,
that happen?
why, and what can you do about it? If you
Absolutely.
understand why, maybe you can treat it. What a concept. So the why is people don't sleep. The phones make you not sleep. It increases inflammation. All the stress and all the stuff that's going on in the globe, it's kind of scary. And that helps you increase your inflammation. Inflammation increases depression. Depression makes you lose muscle. Loss of muscle causes more inflammation. It's a cycle. I think one of the scariest and nastiest statistics I'm aware of is in a 9 to 12-year-old children. We're talking about now preteens, really. Suicide is number four reason for death in that age group.
That is so sad.
That's sad. And again, the question is, why would that be? Children are not supposed to be taking their lives, right?
Correct.
But it's happening. So part of the stigma, part of it we don't understand, or we're not cognizant. If you look at mental disease like physical disease, that's how I look at it. I'm a biological kind of guy, right? To me, I used to be a trauma surgeon. Somebody has blood coming out of the chest, it's obvious, you treat it. But mental health has been on this debatable kind of, is it real? Are you lying? What's the secondary agenda? And it's interesting, most people talk about PTSD, that it's primarily military. Well, turns out the biggest number of people with PTSD are abused women. So look at this statistic. 1 out of 3 women in the United States will have a sexual attack in their lifetime. Half will develop
One
PTSD.
in 3?
That's FBI statistics. So you're looking one out of 6.
I would have
Right.
guessed 1 in 100, maybe.
Oh, no. That's
You're
how
saying 1 in 3 women are sexually abused?
in the United States, yeah. In the Army, it's probably 40% of women have something called MSA, military sexual attack, or MST, military sexual trauma. Yeah, the numbers are horrific. 1 out of 10.
How can that be?
I'll let your
That means
imagination think
one
about
out
that.
of. Does that mean 1 out of 3 men are rapists, sexual abusers?
Well, you're assuming it's 1 on 1. So some people are, there's many sequential rapists. We're talking about, there's a number of men who attack 1,000 women, 500 women. No, I don't think it's a number is that high. I think sexual attack on men is 1 out of 50, something like that. That's all FBI statistics. The numbers are disgusting. No question about it.
Has that number have these numbers changed over the last 20, 30 years?
I'm sure that got worse. The worse
That's what
society
I'm
is doing
thinking.
mentally, the more of that happens.
Well, that plays into this thesis that I've been trying to sort through in my own mind, and that is, it seems to me that in the last 50 years, as a culture, we have become much better educated and much smarter. I don't know whether the IQs have gone up, but
No,
just
IQs have gone
the
down
amount of
since
knowledge. Yeah, the
IQs have
amount of
actually
knowledge
gone
that,
down since 1970s. That's been measured
wow.
globally. But go ahead. We got
Well,
smarter,
just
kinda, not really.
well, we acquire more knowledge. How about that?
Oh yeah, of
Is
course.
that an
As society, we do.
appropriate way to put it? As a society, and we are much, I mean, by an order of magnitude, much more affluent today than our forefathers were just a couple of generations ago. I mean, I grew up in Ohio in a very small town. All of my relatives were farmers. And, s- you know, a big part of our economy when I was a kid, I think a third was agriculture. And today, I think it's more like 10%. And so we've got it so much better than our ancestors did. We have running water, we have electricity, we have air conditioning and heat, and we want for very little in terms of Malthus three hierarchical needs: food, shelter, and I guess clothing.
You talk about Maslow,
Um,
Maslow developmental.
right,
Yeah.
but the more knowledge we acquire, the more money we get, the crazier our culture becomes. There were no children on milk cartons when I was a little kid. I lived on North Main Street. My grandparents lived on South Main Street. Spot and I used to walk at 3.5, 4 years old from my parents' house to my grandparents' house and back. Nobody missed me. Nobody worried about me. I was just being a kid. And that, you can't do that today. And
But why do you think that is? I'll give you my opinion, but what do you think it is?
that's my question to you, doctor. Why is it the smarter we get, smarter in quotation marks, meaning education smart, and more affluent, do we get crazier?
Let me just get a clarity. Are you talking about United States or the globe?
I'm talking about our country.
Okay. All right.
I don't have insight into the rest of the
All right.
world
So
like I do in the
let's
US.
compare and contrast, if you don't mind. So if you look at
Sure.
what's happening, so first of all, saying that we are more educated than we were 20 years ago, I don't think that's true. Our school systems are deplorable. They're disgusting. They're housing units more than education. So if you look at
Well, I think where I'm coming from, I was in high school when who was president? I don't think it was Johnson. It was somebody after Johnson, and the schools were desegregated. So
that's
for a
Kennedy.
century,
That's Kennedy, I think.
no, I think it was after Kennedy because I was in high school.
Then
I
it was
remember
Nixon.
vividly.
Then it's Nixon.
I think it may have been done when Nixon was president.
Yeah.
And so my point is this: for 100 years, more than that, we deprived black people in this country of an education. I mean, they could go to school, but the black schools were generally considered inferior to the schools that white kids were going to. But then we desegregated schools, and I lived in the deep South, and it caused a serious backlash. And but the fact of the matter is, it was the right thing to do then, and it was a good thing to do for a whole race of people in this country. And I've witnessed firsthand the evolution of black people, and that they've acquired education that previously they were denied. And I think you could say that similarly about a lot of white people who grew up in less advantaged parts of the country, like Appalachia, for instance. I mean, that was always an example of where people did not have the same opportunities that you would have if you lived in Chicago, for instance. We're also very excited to welcome Nessa's Hemp as a advertiser on our show. And I don't put my name behind something unless I actually believe in it. So when I tell you about Nessa's Hemp, I want you to listen up. Nessa's Hemp is a Chicago-based hemp company founded by Anessa. And what she has built is really something special. We're talking clean, high-quality hemp products with no gimmicks, just real ingredients, real transparency, and real results. Whether you're dealing with stress, sleep issues, or inflammation is the enemy, or you just want to add something natural to your wellness routine, Nessa's Hemp has something for you. And right now, in our city, head over to nessahemp.com. That's NESAS hemp.com and check out what they've got. Use the promo code John at checkout for a discount, and that's just for our listeners. Nessa's Hemp, homegrown, honest, right there in Chicago. Hey, we also have another new sponsor to The Truth. They're filling up, folks. If you want to advertise on The Truth, just email johngordontruth@gmail.com. We'd love to consider an association with you. We do vet our advertisers, and this one is called Masculine Man Essentials. And they've got a line of cosmetic type products for men, specifically deodorant. And they've got multiple fragrances of men's deodorant. They've got Rocket Man. They've also got Freedom deodorant and bootlegger Baron deodorant. So I've got it's all roll on. It's organic, doesn't hurt the environment, doesn't have those sprays that emit stuff into the air. And so you might want to check out Masculine Man Essentials. And just before we get to our first interview, I want to take a second to tell you that I'm personally using them. These are premium natural deodorants made specifically for men who want to stay fresh without loading their body up with chemicals and aluminum. I didn't know that spray-on deodorant had aluminum, but that's what I'm told. No harsh stuff, no weird fragrances, just a clean, fresh smell with effective protection that actually works all day long. I'm a tennis player. I play tennis just about every day. I dab a little bit of that Manly Man deodorant on before I go play tennis. Then I do it again after I shower. If you're tired of deodorants that don't work or are packed with ingredients you can't even pronounce, you need to check these guys out. Go to masculinemanessentials.com and use the program code TRUTH for a discount on your first order. That's masculinemanessentials.com. And we'll have that link in the show notes for you as well. The fact of the matter is, girls just don't like guys that smell bad. They just don't like smelly dudes. So if you want to impress the ladies, make sure you get some Masculine Man Essentials and use the program code TRUTH so you can even get a discount in the process.
So, well, let's forget the education then for a second. So if you look at, I think the problem is leisure time. People don't know what to do with leisure time. And also, if you look what passes for entertainment, yeah, to me, keep in mind, I used to be a trauma guy, so I dealt with victims all day long, especially pediatric sexual abuse was the worst cases. But if you look at the stuff that people consider entertainment, look at Silence of the Lambs, right? The guy was wearing somebody's skin. I mean, how is that appropriate entertainment, in my opinion? And I mean, all this ideas, mass murderers and all of this, and the press does this. it's mind-boggling to me. And again, the problem is, no, we don't have anything to want for, but the problem is human beings are designed to strive. We're designed to push against something. If you have Uber coming, bringing you the food, and you have the money and you have this, what are you pushing against? Once you're not pushing against anything, plus you don't get out, you're not moving, you're not doing anything, now you're depressed. And now you're depressed, it's somebody else's problem, right? Now you have rapes, you have taking children off the streets and doing unconscionable things with children or women or whatever. That's all a direct consequence of society that's kind of on its last leg. If you read The Fall of Rome, very similar things were happening. They had nothing to strive against, right? So now I think there's going to be a awakening coming where our exotic position in the globe is going to get compromised pretty rapidly. And I think it's going to be very interesting. People never been hungry before become hungry. I think it's going to be very ugly. But again, back to your question, why there's so much societal strife? There's like 5 million reasons for that. Part of it is our food is poison. Our food supply is bad. Think of the stuff you eat. Let's say if you go to McDonald's every day and you have a cheeseburger, that produces free radical. That free radicals screws up your brain, so your brain does not work in a large number of people. Plus, if you drink all those power drinks, right? Energy from power, that also screws up the brain. Also, people are addicted to video, TV, and all of this. So they don't sleep. If you don't sleep, guess what happens to your brain? It swells. So you can't think right. So if you don't think right, it makes sense to go attack a woman or kidnap a child of a street.
Doctor, I think that you are absolutely right. I have observed throughout my life, and I've asked the question. I've asked the question of my wife. Why does it take a tragedy or adversity of beyond a normal sort of adversity that we all see and experience in life for some people to acquire humility? I have known in my life some of the meanest, most arrogant people ever. They will suffer a family tragedy beyond proportion that you just don't even want to contemplate. And what happens next? They turn to God, and all of a sudden they develop empathy and become more humble. Now that, granted, that's a very small anecdotal focus group of less than 10, but I have seen it repeated.
It doesn't have to everybody, right? Some people get meaner.
Yeah.
You know, the old saying, there's no atheists in the foxholes.
I've not heard that, but it doesn't
That was
require
from World War
explanation, really.
World War One. That's a foxhole war. And basically, when you're so stressed, even you're atheist, whatever, but then you go, you know, it's like, God, if you let me survive, I'll be a good person. That's human nature. That's how we all are wired. But I don't know. I mean, I think the problem is there's a lot of selfishness, and I think the cohesiveness of United States society, which has been really beautiful, is ripping to shreds for multiple reasons. I mean, we don't have enough time to do it.
Did you say selfishness?
Oh yeah.
Did I hear you
Selfishness,
right?
absolutely.
1,000%.
So if you are a selfish person, from that perspective, raping somebody makes a lot of sense, right? Sure. If you're a humane person, how can you even consider that? Why would you do that? And then if you want to do something pro-societal, you're not going to go abduct children off the streets and do something horrible with them and bury them in the backyard somewhere. It's not going to happen. But the connection, and there's so much stuff going on where people are disconnected from our society. And also COVID, I think, accelerated because that separated us. And arguably, we never really came back together.
Well, I really did not know where this conversation was going to go today. This is an absolutely fascinating conversation to me. And it just plays into so many of the things that have gone through my brain. And when I zoom out 30,000 feet and look at our country and look at the world, but I have consciously thought that selfishness is being played out on the national stage virtually every day. And I think our inability to get along, our country, everybody pretty much concedes the fact that our country is split down the middle, that we're divided. And
Yeah.
it seems to me that selfishness is a large part of the explanation. Everybody is me, me, me. And it did not used to be that
No.
way. When somebody's house would burn down, their neighbors would come from 5 miles away to help rebuild the house.
Right.
We had a sense of compassion and wanting to help each other. And that seems to have been lost in our culture.
That's true.
To a
It's
large
gone.
degree.
That is a true statement. Yeah.
Well, what do you think of? I heard you mention mass shootings. Do these schoolhouse shootings and mass shootings, do they happen in other parts of the world?
No, not really. So, well, first of all, I mean, and I'm not trying to get into a political debate about guns. I like guns, but I don't think everybody should have 5,000 weapons. And, I'm not sure why somebody needs 1,000 bullet magazines around. So the point is,
Well, look, but
But-
I'm not challenging you at
Yeah.
all. I've had the same questions in my mind, and I don't really get it either. But I will say this: if you take the guns away from somebody who's determined to hurt other people,
right.
they could just as easily go rent a tractor trailer for the afternoon and run it into the schoolhouse and kill people that way. I mean,
I agree.
they'll find a means, I think.
Oh, no.
Um,
I think there are two things. I think easy access to guns is a problem for those type of individuals. But the question is,
It plays into people with impulsivity.
right, but why would a 15-year-old person think they should kill all their classmates? That's a bigger issue.
Why?
I mean, they have
Totally.
occasional stabbings, like mass stabbings in Japan, but we're talking about two, maybe. I mean, as opposed to every day there is another something, but having a military-grade weapon in the hand of something like that, that's different than trying to run down school kids with a trailer. It's just ease of
Yeah.
it. It's so much
Well-
easier as military-grade weapon. I can put 200 rounds downrange in 10 seconds. It's very different, right? I mean, can
Well,
compare it.
I've also thought for a long time that when there is an active shooter, the goal should be to catch the person, to get the person alive.
Why?
We really need to be able to capture them alive so that we can put them in front of you and trained professionals to get inside their brain and find out what is triggering this. Unfortunately, most of the time we kill the assailant. I get it. I understand it's necessary to protect other people, but if we could tase them, if we could incapacitate them, I mean, we don't shoot. Yeah, it's bizarre. If a bear comes into the public high school, they don't kill the bear. They anesthetize the bear and get the Department of Animal, whatever it is, to come pick them up.
Yeah, but
Why don't we anesthetize the person, get them into a room with doctors, and give the MRIs and the other brain diagnoses, and find out what is driving these people
we actually know the
to
answer to
commit
that.
such demonic acts.
We already know this. This is not. First of all,
What is
a
it?
lot of those people kill themselves. It's not like they being necessarily killed by the police, right? But a lot of times the
True.
antisocial personality forms over time. Once they develop antisocial personality, good luck fixing that. It's like a pediatric predator. The brain is changed forever. That's how the brain is built. We could talk about where it comes from, but there are brain changes in those guys. When you have those kind of brain changes, I mean, so you can say don't do that, but they always feel like for example, I've read decent amount of literature about, I don't know about the school shootings, but I do know about pedophiles quite a bit. I've did some research on it. They always want to do it. It's invariable. They're like that forever. I've had a lot of discussion with people. It's like, I don't know what you do with that, frankly. But if you think they're
Well,
safe, they're
why
not.
do they want to do it?
Because
Are
the
they
brain, I mean,
trying
that's
to?
like, we can get into some neuroscience stuff, but bottom line is the brain is altered. The brain is not that of a normal person. Like for an adult to want to have sex with a 2-year-old is not normal, in my opinion.
Duh.
Right? Well, it's not as die as you
Yeah.
think, because
Well,
I've met
it's
people who
more
are
than
trying to
it's more
normalize
than
it,
just
and
it's that's it. That's the point I was going to get to. It's more than just an altered. It's more than just a sexual perversion. It's evil. It is, to me. It is fundamentally evil. I think there
yeah,
should be a
I
red
agree with
line
that.
that you hurt a kid, you're going to pay the ultimate price.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't happen like that. But we won't get into corporal punishment and all that. But my point, though, is evil is really not a scientific term. I do agree with you as a person, but sciencey, why does that happen? What is antisocial personality? Antisocial personality can enjoy chopping a body into pieces and eating that. That's not normal in our society yet. Hopefully, it'll never become normal. The evil people do, there's multiple causes for that. But antisocial personalities used to be a very small number of people. Now the number of
Mhm.
antisocial personalities are much larger. Is that the media? Is that the cell phones? Is that the food we eat? Is that the Wi-Fi? Is that the stress? I don't know. I don't think nobody really knows what's going on, but the number of antisocial acts, such as sexual attack on small children or whatever, such as cannibalism, such as all the most disgusting thing you can possibly imagine, is growing. And that's a sign of a sick society. So our society is sick mentally and physically in many ways. And also, at least in the United States, I think a lot of times people have so much time on their hands, they don't know what to do with it. There's nothing to do. And they also don't feel like they belong. The other part that's happening now is a lot of men, young men, cannot find um, women to hang with, whatever the reason that happens, right? All of that is and it makes people frustrated and angry, and there is a flashback against women. All of that is happening right now. This is all happening real time.
We've identified all the problems. What's the solution? I mean, what one thing that occurs to me is, I mean, I'm 73 years old, so I've lived through a lot. I've seen a lot of changes in our society. And when the Supreme Court ruled that prayer was not permissible in schools, it seemed to me either coincidentally or contemporaneously with a decline of morality in our country. I can't help but link the two because I started my day in grammar school and middle school. There was a devotional, pledge allegiance to the flag, and um, and a prayer. And I actually look forward to that every morning. It was, frankly, my favorite part of school. We've lost it. Is there linkage?
Maybe. I mean, there's definitely, I think, belonging to something. Actually, if you think about the role of religion, I think it's one of the interesting things that can be analyzed. Religion is designed to hold people together, to give them a common goal, common decency, common this. But when you have multiple different religions, but most religions kind of don't really say go kill a bunch of people or go rape people. But I mean, most religious beliefs just don't work with that, right?
Absolutely.
Clearly.
They overlap.
But my point
Yes.
is, I think there is a place for religion. I'm not sure about religion in high schools or not. Again, I'm apolitical. So, but scientifically, in my personal opinion, I think belonging to something is important. You feel a sense of belonging and responsibility. When you do that, crazy acts go down. When you feel like you're a lone wolf and you're being abused or bullied, whatever, that's when horrible things happen. That's the whole thing. You don't have necessarily belong to a church or a synagogue or a mosque, but you need to belong to something. being, Boy Scouts. That's belonging to something. You have a group around you that's holding you. And when you have difficulty, you have somebody to talk to. If all you're talking to is ChatGPT, you got problems. You need to be with humans or animals, ideally both.
I think that's a good note to end on. I've had one lingering thought that I want to just cover real quick because we're seriously out of time. We've gone over, but Elon Musk says, and I believe him, that we are ushering in an age of abundance with the introduction of humanoid robots who will basically take over many, many, many of our daily needs. I thought, well, I have been thinking that that was a good thing. I'm not sure you haven't convinced me that it may be a horrible thing for humanity. Your thoughts?
I think it's terrible. People need to strive against something. So if you give everybody all the shoes you want and all the shirts you want and all the food you want, but I'll tell you one statistic. If you have a goal, your chance of living extra 10 years is much higher. You need a goal. Sitting at home and being a passive consumer, what you don't use it, you lose it, right? If you're just sitting there and information comes at you, I'm actually 5 years behind you. I'm not that far behind you. But I'm writing books, I'm lecturing and inventing new things. You need to have a goal. I want to save lives. That's kind of my thing. That's kind of my thing, and I want to operate into my 90s. But you need a goal. Just sitting around on your ass when the robots run around and do everything. I don't think abundance maybe. What's abundance? Abundance and feeling good about yourself, about your life, or abundance of material goods. Plus, the planet cannot really sustain that. We're going to be doing something. I don't know. But as far as robots, I think it's a bad idea. And not like big scale, no.
You've given us great advice to live by. The old adage, green grow, brown die,
Right.
is pretty, that's one for the ages. So, Dr. Lipov, I can't thank you enough for coming on with us today. I hope you come back soon. When does your book come out?
About 2 months. Is being polished.
All right. Well,
once it's polished, it'll be ready. I'll let you know if that's okay.
Well, I want an autographed copy. I'll be happy to send you the $20 or whatever it is.
We'll send it to you for free, no problem.
Well, now I'm even more excited to get the book. But thank you so much for sharing your vast knowledge with us. It's been a fascinating conversation. We'll have you back on when the book comes out.
Thank you.
And you'll maybe you would become kind of our Dr. Phil. You know how he used to be on Oprah?
Sure.
And, he was a resident shrink for the audience.
I mean, I've done it.
I'd love to have you.
I've done it for TV stations. They asked me about testosterone, measles. If you're interested in COVID, I'm pretty good at research of all types, and I have pretty decent medical knowledge.
We got a lot of problems to solve, that's for sure, that you can help us with. Dr. Eugene Lipov, author, physician, and scientist. Thank you so much, and we look forward to getting the book. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you, sir.